Hi, I'm Kim Tasso, and as it's the start of a new year, I thought it might be helpful to share some ideas around self-motivation to help us with those dreaded New Year's resolutions. But let's start by thinking, what is motivation? It's obviously a huge area, and psychologists and neuroscientists are discovering new things about motivation all the time. But a motive can be defined as having three elements: the direction, what someone's trying to achieve; the effort, how hard they try; and persistence, how long they keep trying. Daniel Goleman, who wrote many books around emotional intelligence, he said there were four elements that made up motivation: the personal drive to achieve whatever change that you've decided to achieve, your commitment to make it happen, the initiative to take opportunities to make it happen, and also optimism in the terms of, overcoming setbacks. And that's something we discussed in the earlier video on resilience. Most people will know about Maslow's idea around motivation, suggesting that we look at the different levels of need, from physiological right up to self-actualization, and we concentrate on motivating ourselves on these lower levels before we try on the higher ones. But today I wanted to talk about some ideas, some practical ideas that anyone can use. And remember, not everyone is motivated by the same things. There's not a one size fits all. So you need to think about what will motivate you. And that takes me to one of the ideas we shared in an earlier video about different personality types. And in that one, I talked about dogs and cats and bears. And here's Bert, who appeared live in that video, but I didn't today because he's being too wriggly. Anyway, we were saying that this roughly relates to McLennan's theory of motivation. He said some people, dogs, are dependent, are motivated by social affiliation, interaction with other people. So for example, if you're trying to get fitness, then if you're a dog, you might join a class so you can enjoy getting fit with other people. On the other hand, if you're a cat, motivated by task and achievement, you might get yourself a Fitbit and measure yourself against daily targets and against your personal best. That might be the best way to motivate yourself. If you were a bear, however, motivated by power and control, you might create your own running or cycling group that you can then operate. So that's different types of personality. We also know from psychology that people are either motivated to move towards goals and gains and opportunities, or they're motivated to move away from problems. Okay, so which do you think you might be? And if you think about something like losing weight, if you're someone who moves towards opportunities, you might think about what it's going to be like when you're thinner and slimmer self, and that's very exciting. On the other hand, if you're someone who moves away from problems, you might be thinking about the health issues you avoid if you shed those extra pounds. So have a think about that. Now, let's think about this. Excuse me, I might get my prop out here. Who remembers getting stars at school for great work? Maybe you set up a star chart system for your kids to get them to do their chores or their homework or whatever. We all need rewards. So make sure you're clear about what rewards you get if you achieve something. There is a difference here again in people. Some people are motivated by extrinsic rewards. That's things we have to do, where there's an external repayment, like a bonus or something, and others are more motivated by intrinsic rewards. That's doing something we want to do and getting a sense of achievement from a job well done, for example. So it doesn't matter whether your rewards are big, they just need to be exciting enough to spur you on. So for example, for me, if I do my hour workout, then I reward myself with an episode of my favourite TV show. There you go. Okay, so the reason I have the dartboard here is around goals and targets. So that's quite important in motivation. Ed Locke said that a goal is what an individual is trying to accomplish, the object or aim of the action. And there were some interesting findings here that difficult goals lead to higher performance than easy goals. Specific goals are better than general vague goals. And knowledge of your results, getting that feedback, seeing how you're making progress, is really important. We all know about SMART goals. So I've got a tape measure here because SMART goals stand for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time specific. So that's the rational element of setting goals. But what about that all important emotional element, which is what we have to do in order to motivate people? So I've got a lighter here because here's a spark. Because the other acronym, SPARK, stands for goals that are self-determination, purpose, alignment, reward, and challenge. So if you set SMART goals, remember that you check that they have spark element as well. To re-engage with a previous goal you didn't achieve, set a low-high range that averages out with what you're trying to achieve, because people find that more motivating. The next tip is around having bite-sized pieces. In an earlier video on resilience, I talked about the need to break down really big goals into smaller bite-sized pieces. That way they don't seem so daunting. A similar way is if you have a stepping stones approach, where you think about what you're trying to achieve in the long term, the big goal, and then you work back into the small steps you have to take to get there. The next tip is around making a small start. Remember that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Rather than keep putting off an activity because it just seems too big and too daunting, just set yourself 10 or 15 minutes a day to make a start, and then you're on your way, and you feel motivated by the fact that you've actually made a start. Even if it's a little piece each day, it really will help you, and tracking that progress will be really good too. The next tip is around focusing on the smallest element. So in behavioural science, there's the idea of the small area hypothesis. And the researchers found that the smaller number is more motivating to people than the bigger number. So for example, concentrate on the 10% you have achieved rather than the 90% that you haven't. Okay, my next tip is around, here's a big pen, is about writing it down. Okay, psychologists know that we're more likely to achieve a goal if we really visualize what we're trying to do with all our senses, and then write down that desired future state. We know that this is probably around something to do with the psychological rules of consistency and avoiding us and commitment, and avoiding cognitive dissonance for having said we're going to do something and then not do it. So write it down and refer back regularly to what you've written. The next tip is around working with a buddy. We know that if you share what your goal is with someone, and preferably someone who's positive and enthusiastic and encouraging rather than someone who's negative, because there is emotional contagion, or maybe tackle a goal together, the fact that there's someone else who knows what you're trying to do will make you more accountable. And that's the basis on which most of the slimming clubs exist, that you're working with other people who are watching and providing encouragement on your feedback. Now my final tip, number 10, and here I have a very small frog, and this idea is called eat the frog. Most people don't like the idea of eating a frog, and my apologies to anyone French here. I enjoy frog's legs as a delicacy, but most people don't like the idea of eating a frog. So the thought here is, if you start with the smallest or the least favourable task, eat the frog first thing, then you're freed up to do the other things that you find more energizing and more motivating, more interesting. So eat that frog first. Okay, so 10 really fast ideas on self-motivation. Think about which might be most valuable and useful to you. Thank you very much indeed for watching and listening, and have a happy new year. Let's hope 2021 is a bit more exciting and happy than 2020.